hello to everyone that's joined us on our panel today. So during the panel, we'll be exploring strategies and tactics that our 4 panelists, who will be coming on screen shortly, that are joining us from across the globe, what they've implemented to endure and thrive during these unprecedented times. So as Jason mentioned, I'm Siobhan Williamson, also coming to you from the offices actually in sunny London. And most people do call me Shiv, probably to cope with the Irish spelling rather. I'm the European Group Director here at CJ, and I have the privilege of working with every single department across the globe, as well as some of our key partners, like the 4 panelists we have here today. So to give you a little bit of a flavor as to their personalities, I've asked that while they introduce themselves, they let you know what their lockdown quarantine hobby was and how they kept themselves entertained. So personally, I avoided the banana bread craze in interest of my waistline and opted for a puzzle craze instead. So on your screen from left to right, I'll hand it over to Lauren to introduce herself.
Thanks, Chev. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren, MD, and I'm the Affiliate Marketing Associate for Walgreens. I oversee the affiliate relationships for our retail and contact side of the business. So I work with our cross-functional partners, our digital merchants, our supplier-funded team and promo planning team, as well as our external partners as well. So all of our valued publishers, and essentially make sure to grow our business initiatives through this channel especially. For lockdown quarantine, I live here in Chicago, so I've been exploring more neighborhoods, checking out the parks, the architecture, just really trying to get outside while it's still nice and enjoying the sunshine.
Hi everyone, my name is Ed Camargo. I'm the Managing Director at NMPi. We are a performance-focused agency. I spend my days really looking at all of the channels and all of the brand partners that we help and trying to increase performance. I went the other way, opposite of Shiv, and instead of watching my waistline, I decided to try to really understand how to make the best pasta and the best pasta sauces. Not tremendously successful, but I'm getting there.
You have to cook it for us sometime. Angus, do you want to go?
Hey everyone, I'm Angus Drummond. I am the Commercial Director for VoucherCodes, which is the UK arm of Retail Me Not. I oversee all of the commercial partnerships, relationships with the retailers, networks, agencies. I'm missing all the parties, like probably a lot of people are right now. And my lockdown hobby was, I thought like self-care because we're all inside, and I thought, you know, I'll take care of myself. So I watched a lot of QVC beauty videos, and I'm an incremental shopper. I bought everything, and I tried it all, and I feel better from it. But if anyone asks me to do like a facial or anything, I'm going to have like a non-disclosure type thing or like a waiver because I'm not that good yet, but that was me.
Sam, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sam Richards. I am Senior Director for Global Partner Marketing at Hotels.com. I've been with Expedia Group because it's an Expedia Group brand for 9 years, and I'm responsible for HCOM's global partnership activity. In terms of my lockdown hobby, I have swapped my 6 a.m. commute, which took me 1 hour and 40 minutes to get into the office, for a 6-hour run. Although I'm still yet undecided on which one of the two is more painful. I'm leaning towards the run actually, but I'm definitely getting a bit fitter.
Geez, 6-hour run. You're going to need to go and get a massage from Angus with his beauty tips.
Sorry, 6 a.m. 6 a.m. run, not 6-hour run. Oh my gosh.
Seemed a little excessive. So thanks so much, guys. So given the nature of the topic, I know that we could get really engrossed. So I'm also going to be playing timekeeper as well as moderator, but I promise not to cut you off too rudely. So in the interest of time, let's get cracking. So I'm sure you'll agree that within the affiliate space, people are the core of everything that we do. So as with the CJ team, I'm sure that this was a dramatic shift for you and all of your teams. So let's start with you, Angus. On to our first question. How have you and your team adapted since the onset of COVID-19?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate in the sense of in February, not anticipating any of this, we launched our first fully flex kind of work from home system where people could work from home 3 days a week. We didn't anticipate that would then become 5 days a week. So we became quite well accustomed to Zoom. People were set up at home with it. I personally now, like, I don't know how I'm going to go into a meeting room and not wave at someone when we start having that sort of human interaction and not on Zoom. And what we realized really quickly was that you can work very effectively from home. You can work collaboratively together. You can keep in contact. I think we initially, when everything kicked off, everyone had so much personal stuff going on as well that, more regular check-ins with people to make sure that they were okay, how they're doing, how their families are doing. And we wanted to keep that, that really vibrant culture live. And we did some sort of virtual company events like scavenger hunts. And I found myself with a pot in my head trying to be a knight at one point, which I never thought I would be doing in June 2020. And lots of quizzes, I'm sure lots of people did. And I think, while that's all great and we're still really embracing it, we do miss that sort of human aspect of seeing each other and going to the events and preparing also for the Q4 events and stuff. So, yeah.
Great. Lauren, did you want to give us a bit of an insight from the Walgreens team?
Sure. Pretty much the same as to what Angus mentioned, learning to acclimate in this new way of working or working from home. Personally, I went into the office almost every day, so learning how to best organize my apartment, make sure it's conducive for my work functions. And of course, people who have kids or loved ones also working from home, that's always a challenge to learn how to accommodate that as well. But as it started to become more normal and as we start to understand that we're going to be in this for a while, I think we've settled in and really utilized certain platforms. For Walgreens, it's Microsoft Teams. We've really been using that as our platform for communication and file sharing and creating more virtual opportunities to stay connected. So that has been a definite advantage of this time, is having the technology we need in place. And I think lastly, it's important that we took time out of every single week to make sure that we could take a break, to step away from the laptop and from our work environment in home, so we could have that mental break, do other tasks or things that needed to be accomplished, and create some semblance of balance during this time.
Definitely. Sam, have you had much of a shift with the team?
We've been quite fortunate at Expedia Group, as in we've got quite a flexible working environment anyway. So most people have got some degree of flexibility with their work schedule, and we're quite used to working remotely. Although it has been a huge shift to go to 5 days a week. But I think, like most of the folks there, we've been leveraging some of the tools out there. We use Slack a lot to make sure that we connect regularly throughout the workday, and just make sure we have more check-ins with people. So people aren't feeling as if they're not part of that team. So we've been working extra hard on that. But it's amazing how productive I think the teams have managed to be, given the fact that we're not together in the office. I think we've gone some ways to overcompensate. And although people miss that interaction, we certainly haven't missed a step in terms of being able to get the job done.
That's great. And Ed, I know that NMPi just won the Community Heroes, so I imagine you guys are, having an interesting time of it with the team remotely.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the same things that everybody said. For us, I think it's been a little bit more of a challenge just because it was a very close-knit group, so much so that they would really all go out to lunch together, which is kind of unheard of. But it's evolving. So even now, as we're getting used to, okay, it'll likely be until next year until we all see each other in the office again, until we're talking to clients directly face-to-face again, or vendors. It's all right, how do we cope with that? How do we do events outside of the office or virtual events? And I think it's gonna be a learning experience, especially as the holidays come upon us. Yeah,
definitely. Well, hopefully CJU will be a groundbreaking virtual event to lead by. So I know that as a business, we've actually shifted a lot of our focus and development due to COVID. So let's look at that a little bit more in our next question. So were there any new business initiatives rolled out that were previously not included in your roadmap for 2020? And I think we'll start with Sam, as I'm sure everyone's dying to hear from a travel perspective.
Thank you. So as you might expect, travel was one of the industries that was heavily impacted by COVID-19 and continues to be impacted by COVID-19. Obviously, there was a massive drop in demand, as you might expect, when the outbreak hit the different markets. So the business decided to accelerate a number of different initiatives. There was a lot that we pivoted in actioning, but let me give you a number of examples just so you get a bit of a sense. So firstly, on the technology side, Hotels.com had plans to move to a new mobile platform, and that transition for its traffic was meant to be over a 6-month period, and the tech and product teams did that transition inside of a month. Second, on the brand side of things, Expedia Group operate 2 vacation rental brands in the US, HomeAway and Vrbo. We actually sunset the HomeAway brand in the US, which was due to happen in a year's time. And we did that in a few weeks. So now we're just operating just as Vrbo in the US. And then the final point is how we work. So historically, we've worked more independently as brands. So the B2C brands now are working much closer together and sharing many of the learnings, particularly as COVID started to happen. And we had to share our best practices in terms of how we were dealing with the situation. So we've got a lot of benefit from those learnings. And also we've brought together a number of the performance marketing teams. So we can get those teams working closer together and essentially simplify the business and help us work more efficiently. So those are just some of the examples of some of the things that we planned, but we accelerated.
Sounds brilliant. And Ed, what about at NMPi?
Yeah, so from the agency perspective, where we're helping brands, I think one of the things that we very quickly had to adjust and provide what was needed was really assessing from our clients, what is it that they needed now that they maybe weren't getting from us in the past, that they maybe were getting from another agency, but it wasn't available to them now. So a good example of this is really creative. As the consumer behavior changed and sentiment changed, we realized that engagement was falling off. And it was because the consumer wasn't really wanting to hear the same messaging that was happening pre-COVID. And so during the pandemic, they wanted messaging that fit with what they were experiencing. So for us, we shifted into providing creative services on a performance basis, which is something that we didn't have available before the pandemic, but we saw as a critical element of performance. And so when we were able to do that, we saw that really what we needed was a commitment from the agency to just help out the brand however we could, whether that meant looking into their data or it meant looking at feed management and provide solutions that were also priced on a performance basis that would change the impact of performance with what they were dealing with at the time.
That's awesome. It's great to see the customer shift as well and how you adapted, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. So Lauren, what about at Walgreens?
Yeah, so from a business standpoint, we definitely had to learn how to adapt and quickly innovate, especially with the increased demand that we saw right on the onset as well, mid-March, once most people went into lockdown. So right away, we activated free shipping, no minimum, something we had only done this past holiday season for the first time. And we wanted to make sure our customers were comfortable staying at home. If they didn't feel comfortable going into store, that they didn't have to achieve a certain threshold online in order to place their orders and receive it at home. So that's something that we ran for about a month into lockdown, just to make sure our customers were getting what they needed. In addition to creating new means of order pickup or delivery. So this included drive-through pickup, curbside pickup, and we really highlighted our partnership with Postmates as well. So there are other ways that our shoppers could get what they needed if they weren't going in the store or placing their orders directly online. We also significantly scaled back on photo offers to make sure that we were lessening foot traffic in store and that people were only going in for those essential purchases. And I think lastly, as we saw this high demand coming through. Our e-com distribution center was trying to keep up with everything, and we learned that we could then tap our store distribution centers to help fulfill orders and make sure that our customers were getting what they needed in a timely manner. And that was especially important and something that we weren't looking to do, didn't know we could do, but it resulted in at least 2x the standard output that we're able to do on one DC alone. So that was something that we really saw as a key learning and something that we can implement in the future if needed.
That's fantastic. You should probably keep it going. And Angus, lastly, let's go over to you.
Yeah, so 2 years ago we launched, well, over 2 years ago now, we launched our student verification product. And it was always our intention to look at more sort of affinity groups that we could perhaps work with to do those sort of closed group offers. And in our backlog, and what we were discussing sort of this time last year, was looking at how maybe we could look at service workers, health service, etc. COVID happens, and it was basically a 4-week turnaround and cross-team effort. We actually launched an NHS verified product for our healthcare workers, and we saw amazing response from our retailers. A lot of retailers didn't know how to maybe sometimes get the reach out with their own offers, so they used our platform and used our verification as well. We had over 72 merchants give us these offers to put on our site, and we've also just released the numbers of, we've driven just under 1 million in retailer sales from these offers alone, and we have saved the NHS staff over £150,000 in savings, which is really, really good. And it is something that we had a meeting today about it all, and we are obviously going to continue and develop on this product, which is incredible.
That's amazing. I know that we wouldn't be where we are today without our healthcare professionals, and the NHS in the UK has definitely been the saving grace for us. So I'll take this moment to say thank you for supporting them, and thank you to them for supporting us. So I know that a lot of these changes have come off the back of, you know, the customers changing their perception of who they should be shopping with and whether they should be shopping and how and so on. I know that my browsing behavior has shifted dramatically. So let's look at our customers a little bit more. And so we'll move on to the next question, and we'll start with you, Ed, because I know you talked about it briefly before, but to deep dive into that a bit more. So did you notice any changes in customer behavior due to COVID-19? And it'd be great to also see how that's evolved during the course of the year and the different stages of the virus.
Yeah, no, you set me up quite well. So yes, incredible changes. From the beginning, when people first started working from home, we definitely saw the patterns of shopping change online, of course. So we saw that people were shopping during the typical 9 to 5 time where you usually reserve for working. We also saw some drop off in weekend shopping and weekend researching for purchases and services, mainly because it was happening more during the week. The other thing that we noticed was that it differed by a time of or part of the country. So the US is made up of so many different just cultures and even geographies within states that you kind of can't look at it all as in one. So you said how it's evolving now. What is happening right now is a good picture, whereas we just passed Labor Day in the US, and typically what's happening now is everybody's getting used to going back to school and shopping for going back to school. But the reality is that there are some parts of the country that aren't going through that same consumer behavior. They're instead looking at what it's going to be to keep the kids at home and to have to teach them at home. So in the tri-state area where I am, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, you're seeing a sellout of laptops as parents rush to buy laptops for all their kids, just completely sold out. Whereas in Des Moines, Iowa, they're going back to business as usual. They're buying furniture for going to college and things like that. And so for us, understanding the intricacies of how that's happening geography to geography, even within a state, we can't even say, oh, we know that Florida is going to behave this way. That's not true. Florida will behave completely different based on what's happening within the state. That was something that was quite eye-opening and continues to be so, and just tells us that we have to be even more flexible and more quickly looking at consumer sentiment to be able to adjust to it. And then the second part, which I thought was critical, was to understand the way that the consumer was consuming media itself. During the beginning of the pandemic, we saw incredible increases in social supply and also in programmatic supply, especially within streaming video. But as you notice what that traffic actually meant, they weren't engaging or converting at the same metrics before. And that's when we noticed that the creative needed to change. And that in turn allowed us to understand, okay, the creative needs to now speak to the consumer in this way. And even as the months flowed by, you needed to change that up because it became less of having to have that very sophisticated looking creative, and you can now move to an environment where you're seeing people shoot commercials on video like this and just very casual, and it was understood and it was even welcome. So for us, it's not something that has stopped. We will continue to do so, and as we approach in the US, as we approach Black Friday and Cyber Monday, it's going to be another like reevaluation of where the consumer is by geography, by time of day, by device, even to be able to capture the demand where it exists. Yeah,
that's really interesting. The state by state, it's not something that we have as much here, more country by country. So Sam, what about you with the customers with hotels?
So I think there's kind of two parts to it, right? So there's the change in behavior we saw when the initial lockdown came in, and I think the first thing that we saw is customers understandably weren't necessarily thinking about travel, given the fact that they were in lockdown, and it just wasn't an appropriate thing to be thinking about at that time. And then the second piece in the beginning was just the volume of cancellations. So travel is a very considered purchase and something that people will book weeks, months, or even potentially even for the following year in advance. So customers were really thinking about, okay, how do I change my trip? Can I get my money back? What kind of flexibility will I get from the hotelier? So in the beginning, that's something that we had to support them in. As we've kind of gone into this more kind of recovery phase now, as markets have come out of their respective lockdowns, we expected and we have seen a bumpy recovery, and that depends what's going on in the different markets, right? Because as the markets kind of open up and the governments do better or not so good jobs of kind of managing the pandemic, that's really directly affected our success. In terms of how it's changed the behavior of customers, three things which I think are worth calling out. One, we've seen a massive change in terms of what people book. People are overwhelmingly book domestic properties. Of course, people are still booking international, but the trend has definitely moved to domestic. Drive to destinations where they're not necessarily having to travel long distances or get onto an aeroplane. Also, we've seen a real interest in more flexibility on the booking, so getting fully refundable rate plans. So if situations change, then they're going to have the flexibility to make the change. And there's a lot more interest around cleanliness and what steps our properties are taking to make sure that they're offering a safe environment to customers. So we've done a lot of work to surface that type of information on our sites. And then the final point is kind of what type of accommodation people are booking. And we've seen a move to vacation rentals, which are basically anything that's got its own front door, kitchen, and garden, just because many people now are putting a lot of value in terms of having their own space. So Verbo brand, or also known as HomeAway in certain markets, has really kind of been leading. It's been one of the kind of the brands that's kind of seen a huge kind of pickup in performance as customers have started to kind of move to that type of accommodation. And we've even seen a term that we've called flexcations, which is where people are starting to combine working remotely with traveling for longer periods of time with their family, because they know that they can work effectively remotely. So why not go to a fantastic location where you can enjoy your free time with the family, but as long as you've got your internet connection, you're able to get the work done and work effectively. So those are really some of the big ones that we've seen.
That's great. And so Angus, I know that you will probably look at how you've worked with your advertiser partners, but let's deep dive that a little.
Yeah, so initially when obviously the pandemic hit, it was very much like so much inbound, people not really knowing how to react, ourselves included, with a lot of things. Like everyone's like, no one knows what to do right now. And it was about the case, we spoke about it earlier in terms of the relationships in the industry. It was about trying to show that support. How can we support our retailers at this time while also causing as minimal disruption to business as possible, right? Which meant that, we had to work hand in hand with a lot of these retailers, networks, agencies, in ensuring that we had a kind of a varied approach to a lot of things. Some would want to work business as usual, and that was fine. Others couldn't fulfill orders, and some didn't even have their websites working at some point. And others actually were like, we've closed stores, so we really want to trade online more. What more can we do? So there were so many that was varied in what people wanted to do. We realized that with the size of our database, we had to be informative as much as we were transactional at some points. And so the operations and our product and engineering team created what we called the COVID module, which on our merchant page sat at the top. And that was kind of, it informed consumers of what was going on at that retailer, whether they were closed, whether there were shipping delays, whether they had to wait in a queue when they landed on that page. And we did this to try and do a few things. One was that kind of, they make the informed decision there and then if they want to continue the journey. It stopped them contacting the merchants' call centres who would be bombarded already with calls. And it also helped us as well give our user that sort of experience of, listen, like we're kind of one stop to start with on it, which was great. We have removed most of these pages now, which is really promising as well. Most of these modules are gone. There are some that are still there. But we, it's a case-by-case basis, and we're just constantly reviewing things and keeping in contact with our retailers on what to do next.
Great. So I'm interested, well, in the interest of time, Lauren, I'm going to get you to straddle this question with the next question as well. So if you could talk about how you've adjusted to customer needs, but also cover off how do you think the affiliate channel has supported and developed you during the evolution of COVID? I imagine those kind of go a little hand in hand.
Sure, yep. So in the first few months alone, Walgreens.com was seeing double the amount of rate of people coming to our site and looking to place their orders, since they were trusting more of the digital outlets versus going in store and possibly risking their health or feeling uncomfortable. So it was really making sure that our digital platforms were functioning and that we were conveying the right message to the customer. So whether it was out of stocks or shipping expectations, other services that we were highlighting, as I mentioned before. That was really our focus as we got into COVID and what our messaging was throughout. So we certainly experienced that panic buying initially and customers stocking up on those essential items. We saw that on the store side, people were going into store less frequently, but were building their baskets to be larger. So they were really making their store visit count if they had to go into store. And I think since we cater to all demographics and across all audiences, we didn't necessarily want to tailor to select audiences, but rather have a uniform approach and make sure that we are highlighting those services such as free RX delivery, pharmacy services such as telehealth, and important information. So senior hours versus adjusted store hours, to make sure that our customers were very aware with what was going on and what we made available to them. So that's something that we've really focused on throughout COVID, is making sure that they have the most relevant information, something that is most valuable to them, and then staying on top of it too. So including in stock when items are back in stock, highlighting personal protective equipment, so PPE has been so essential. And then as we start to see demand and buying trends normalize, we brought back in our standard business unit offers and made sure to highlight our other areas of the business as well. So I think the affiliate channel has been very crucial and vital in updating our messaging, being agile in working with our publisher partners so they knew what was going on our side and we could get their take on their end and what their members were looking for. And for example, working with one select publisher and building their COVID newsletters, making sure that they could see our in-stock items so they can pinpoint exactly what they want to feature, not only in one send, but in future sends as well, as we see these trends shift. So the flexibility of affiliate alone has gotten the attention of our leadership, has made affiliate become more integrated into the business overall.
That's awesome. So Angus, should we look at, how a VoucherCodes site, which is, mostly affiliate, how they played into supporting during COVID?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also ties in quite nicely with what Lauren just said there. There are more eyes now on the affiliate channel, especially during COVID. And I think that is also because, especially, coming from my point of view as a publisher, we have flexible payment options, and we can meet different business needs. We can switch models, and we are also very much performance based. And that for us was also amazing because we could see sales coming through in real time. We could see which sectors were performing really well, which sectors weren't doing as well. And so we could make informed decisions, and we could be very proactive as well in reaching out to our retailers, showing support, new retailers we'd never worked with before, and ensuring that, we were maximizing their opportunities. Then in actual fact, travel before the pandemic was 20% market share in our business, which in April dipped to 7%. And it was so interesting to see that very quick switch over to like home and garden, which went from something like 8% to 15%. And we were seeing more of the home essentials, toys and games were up by like 300%. So as you started looking at it and we could see it, we could make those informed choices to speak to people and reach out. And then the other ones where we were seeing the decreases, we were reaching out more, even just a quick coffee to have a chat with them, see how they were doing, see if there was anything we could do with the messaging, anything to help them out as well on the informative side rather than the transactional side at that time.
Great. So given that a lot of that shift would have happened from a travel perspective, Sam, shall we? Oh, he's closing the window. It's like you knew.
Sorry, my daylight is doing funny things with the blinds. Sorry about that.
There we go.
So in terms of changes on the travel side of things, hopefully it's not too dark. There's lots of sunshine coming in, which I shouldn't complain about. So I think the main thing from our point of view is Expedia Group overall, not just hotels.com, has been really focused on becoming a more agile business. As I said earlier, COVID has had a tremendous impact on the travel industry. So there's only so much you can do in the short to mid-term to influence demand. So we're really focused on putting our efforts into developing our technology platform so that we're able to come out of this strong, because we know people will travel again. So we want to make sure that we are well positioned when that demand really comes back. So we're really focused on those kind of long-term investments and getting our strategy for the long term in shape. I think that the final piece on this point is just thinking a little bit about the affiliate channel overall. We've seen a huge amount of support coming in from our affiliate partners, which we're tremendously thankful for as we've gone through this process. Ultimately, they've had to move quite quickly for us in terms of when COVID hit. We had to get things like our creative updated. We had to change many of our messaging, and our partners were absolutely 100% behind us. As we've come out of lockdown, we have then needed to start to kind of think about the types of promotions that are going to be more relevant. And they've given us plenty of ideas and been very supportive around pivoting promotions to focus on guiding customers to refundable rate plans or specific destinations that we know are going to be more relevant for customers. So we've been super thankful of that. And whilst we know we're still very, very challenged, our partners have been 100% behind us.
That's awesome to hear. I'm really glad that support has been there. So in 1 minute, Ed, how about you?
Yeah, I think that from an agency perspective, like obviously we were able to help in provide a service of advertising in a cost structure that worked for us and them, probably more than the traditional agency, which saw losses of business during this time. But more than that, I think one of the things that we really provided was forecast, the ability for them to understand what was about to happen. And that became critical for some of these brands that needed to understand what was around the corner. So we use the tools that we normally have for ourselves to understand how much more we can do, to turn around and say, here's what you should expect, and here's how we can help you with what's coming.
Amazing. So we're on to our last question, and I know that some of the audience have been submitting some Q&A. So if you haven't done so now, please do. So probably the most important thing is looking ahead, and hopefully we'll be out of this soon. So what does the future look like for your business as you consider the lasting effects of COVID-19? It would be great to also kind of pepper in how that the affiliate channel is also going to play a role in those long-term strategies. So shall we start with Lauren?
Sure. So I think coming out of the experience of COVID and learning how to adapt, be agile, be flexible, and understanding the needs of our customers has been very important, and that's shaped our vision going into next year. So it's going to be centered on meeting the expectations of our customers and what they find most valuable in this evolving situation. And stemming from this, much more personalization-based initiatives, so targeted offers, custom communication, really conveying the right message for the circumstance and for the customer themselves. So tying into this vision, affiliate has really proven itself as being one of these agile channels, one that's very flexible. So we can easily fit into these strategies with more personalized offers and messaging. And the business decisions will influence our channel strategies going into the next year, where we hope to be more convenient, more accountable, basically everything the customer is looking for, and make sure that we're offering services, needs, whatever it may be to the customer when they need it, and focusing on that. So affiliate, again, is taking a significant role in being flexible, providing support needed for the upcoming year, and everything that it holds, either unforeseen or seen. So we know that we can adapt to whatever situation arises.
Awesome. So Ed, do you want to let us know what the future beholds?
Yeah, sure. I think Lauren nailed a lot of it. But for us, it's really maintaining the flexibility that we've shown up till now, understanding what consumers are going to need, but then understanding how the brands are going to need the change to be able to service that consumer. And for us, I mentioned earlier that offering creative or feed management as a service on a performance-based model, that's probably not going to go away, but we're going to be looking at what else can we do to increase all of the services in a way that is in a performance-based model to make the dollars work harder, and to understand that we're fine with having skin in the game, and to help you grow. I think that's not going to go away. That's probably going to increase.
That's great. Angus, how about you?
Yeah, I think Ed and Lauren have definitely said most things there. As a business, we are going to be focusing a lot on the new initiatives. We are going to be, there's appetite for it. We're definitely going to be supporting our retailers, continuing to do so to a very high standard, developing those relationships. I think as well, while it's been stressful for everyone, it's also been a time for reflection. And I think the sort of affiliate partner marketing industry, it's a great time, and it has been a great time to focus on our teams, look at what's going on in the world, focus on things like diversity and inclusiveness, and see where we can take that as well with our businesses, with the industry. And I think that's really exciting as well. There's the commercial side, but then there's also the real human side of it, which I'm really looking forward to seeing develop.
Oh, too right. That's very much a focus here as well, and at CJ. How about you, Sam?
Well, I think the performance model has been something, and Mail kind of touched on this in his keynote, that has been a great thing for us during COVID, because it is de-risked, and with the support that we've had from our affiliate partners, it's just really galvanized the fact that this is a channel that we want to continue to develop. So I think as we go into 2021, and we hopefully start to see the trend continuing to improve as it comes to travel, as I'm sure everyone is hoping to see. We'll continue to focus on what the channel can do and continue to work closely with our existing partners and also invest in looking for new partnerships.
That's brilliant. I, for one, really hope travel gets back on track. I'm supposed to be catching a flight tomorrow and now I have to quarantine. Woo! So that is a wrap in terms of our questions that we do have here. And personally, I'm so excited to see how the affiliate channel and your businesses are going to evolve over time. I definitely think that we've made our mark during quite a tough period. So Jason's lovely face has rejoined us on the screen. I know that he's been collating some of those questions for us. So take it away.
That's correct. Thanks, guys, as well. That was really, really interesting. So the first question we've got here is, how are you planning for Q4 given continued lockdowns and economic volatility? Very serious question there.
Oh, does anyone want to personally jump ahead? Oh, should I pick?
If move on. I don't know what I've nominated myself here. I always do that. Yeah. I think, for Q4, we've already started the planning. Before that, we've had conversations internally. We're having conversations externally. I think from a VoucherCodes, from a discount partner, as government schemes start winding down, it's going to be so important as well that we are able to save our consumers as much as possible, delivering the right messages as well for our retailers in terms of, footfall. Whatever happens, if there's spikes, we'll have to monitor that. So there's going to be a lot of things. I think we're going to be juggling a lot more this year, put it that way, than I think we'd ever have before. But yeah, I think it's still going to be a real strong one.
Juggling more than usual.
In the US, one of the things that's so infuriating is that it's so fractured that we actually have to take into account the legislation that's coming down state to state and even municipality by municipality, because what is happening right across the street might be different than what's happening 3 blocks down from the standpoint of restaurants opening or schools opening or things like that. So for us, we are ever more vigilant about what the government is saying and what the direct correlation between that and the consumer behavior is going to be. That's probably going to be on steroids moving forward. So I think that for us, that's something that we will keep going into Q4 hard.
And I would just echo Angus's response. Q4 planning is already underway, so we should be set. I think it's good having contingency plans in place as well, and that's something that we focused on. So if we can't go forward with plan A, what does plan C, plan D look like? Yeah. Well, plan B, I skipped plan B, didn't I? Plan B, plan C, plan D. So having these different options that we'll be able to implement if needed, knowing kind of what to expect and that things can be unexpected. And again, really leaning into being there for the customer, making sure that we're offering the services that are needed and what's most valuable to them.
And I think from our point of view, Jason, it's kind of echoing what they're saying, but also just being flexible and be ready to change should the situation change on the ground, which we've seen has been happening in many of the markets.
Great point. Next question we've got is, how have you had to look at finding new affiliate partnerships to adapt to the new norm? A really quick one. I think we've got about 1 minute left if anyone wants to grab that question.
I think it's me again because of sorry everyone. I would definitely say, and we're fortunate because we work with networks like CJ, and the new opportunities, a lot of these have been coming to us. We've had more contact with our publisher development managers and directors at the networks. We've put these opportunities in front of us. We've actually created a new biz team as well at VoucherCodes, which I'm really proud of, and they developed a lot of very strong relationships throughout. So there's quite a lot of inbound, and there's also quite a bit of outreach. But as I mentioned earlier, we have the reporting to look at the sectors, and that's definitely helped very much.
That's exactly it. Yeah, fantastic work by CJ, and they've been helping us big time, as well as publishers reaching out themselves and establishing new partnerships, seeing what opportunities are on the table. And I think from the Walgreens perspective, we have really leveraged our supplier relationships to continue to promote those businesses, make sure that we're still active in the space, and really build more partnerships that way as well.